1140 The Fan.
Talkin Money. Talkin Money.
Let's rejoin your host, Jeff Tarbell, and Talkin Money.
All right. How are you doing? I can hear now. It doesn't help you, but it helps me. Hey, I wanted to say a quick thanks out to the Sacramento Business Journal. They did a little feature on financial radio shows, and they included me in there for their sympathy vote, so I appreciate that very much. It was great. Appreciate that. That was a nice way to come back in town. Here, our quiz answer. The number one selling beer in the United States is really crappy beer. I just can't stand it. It's Bud Light. And Bud Light is number one. Coors Light moved into number two and pushed back Budweiser to number three. Although the Bud Light Lime, pretty darn good. But the regular Bud Light, wouldn't wash my car with it. Anyway, we got a lot of quiz. We'll take one off the quiz line and off the phone line. If you want to jump in today, 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140, or you can text me at 441140 if you want to dazzle me with your BS. Be happy to put up with that. Speaking of, as I mentioned in the first break there, I traveled to Canada this week, and here's an article right when I get back. I think you never hear this at all. The Caterpillar company, who is doing manufacturing of some pretty heavy-duty equipment, has decided to move their products south, their construction and their manufacturing south of the border. We're used to that, right? But they were moving it from Canada south of the border. That makes it us. We is the winner. Where do you hear that? We are south of the border to somebody. We're south of the border of the Canadians, and they have found that the LaGrange, Illinois plant is significantly cheaper than the London, Ontario plant, and they're moving jobs south of the border, and that makes us the winner. In fact, very interesting if you look at Canada in terms of just hourly compensation and the cost of manufacturing stuff. Canada is up almost 80% over the last 10 years, and the United States is up a little over 20%. So we are getting more competitive, and the article goes on and talks about a lot of different companies out of looking back at the United States and saying, we've become, in part due to some low energy costs back in the Midwest also, but we've become a good alternative source for manufacturing. Get out of here.
Well, we have a workforce looking for something to do.
Yeah.
There's excess capacity in plants that they can get cheap. Some states, not California, are giving out some incredible tax incentives.
And they've got the combination of the technology we have with the reduced number of actual physical bodies that have to be there. And that's why the energy costs can be such a big deal. If you're running a bunch of equipment and machines, that cost is in power. It's not in people. So I just thought it was very interesting. We don't think of ourselves as south of anybody's border, but we are. And I love to have these two, because as I mentioned, I've been trying to track down some snow and find it. So I've been doing a lot of the shopping and by internet here, looking for places. So here you go. Write these down. If you're thinking about traveling, make a note. I told you so. Number one, if you're looking for cheap fares, where do you go? Off the top of your head, boom. What if you're looking for fares online? Where do you go?
Kayak,
okay. Expedia. Orbitz, okay. So Kayak is the number two in terms of what they did. Is the Wall Street Journal took a rating, a search for the best fare from Phoenix to Philadelphia round trip in February, and they used all the search engines to find what you can get the lowest fare for. Expedia was almost the most expensive. Bing, Google, Hipmunk. I never heard of Hipmunk. You heard of Hipmunk?
Never.
Fare Compare, Orbitz, Travelocity, Mobissimo. Never heard of it. Kayak was number two, and the number one site for the cheapest fare, and it was a lot cheaper, onetravel.com. Never heard of it, but write it down, onetravel.com. Kayak would be number two, and Mobissimo, Mobissimo, it would be number three. And Kayak I'm familiar with, the other two I am not. So if you're doing a little shopping, just put One Travel. Let me see, they made a note here. Fare is $42 less than fares on others for the exact same flight, but chances are it won't be available at booking. Great. Our interest rates are 0% today. Chances are you won't get one. We'll have to try that in our marketing. Actually, we have rates at 0% if you want to do that. The closing costs are extremely high because if you have to take your balance, pay it off entirely, and pay me $1,000. But you can get a 0% rate if you choose to do that. So now, let's say you find your flight on One Travel. Which airline do you want to fly on? You haven't seen have you seen this?
No.
Okay. So take a guess. The number one overall ranked airline for 2011, and I'm flying on them next weekend, by the way. Oh, shoot. I just gave it away. Almost gave you, because I think you know where I'm going.
I have no idea. I think they go to Maui now, though.
They do. So the number one overall ranked airlines is Alaskan Air, followed by Delta, Southwest, U.S. Airways, JetBlue, United, and American. So Alaska is your number one carrier. So if you can book a one travel flight on Alaska, you'll get the cheapest price if they'll let you book it, and you'll get the best airlines in 2011. So
It surprised me U.S. Air is 3.
no, U.S. Air is not 3. Oh. U.S. Air is U.S. Air is 4. So Southwest dropped down to number 3. So Alaska, Delta, Southwest, U.S. Air, JetBlue, United, and American. And I think JetBlue's biggest problem was delays, and that probably has to do with they fly into the East Coast a lot. Although nobody has any snow right now. Should be that was for all last year. And we had a lot of snow last year, so that's probably not a fair comparison. So there you have it. I did mention before the last break there that we were talking about the Fed and how some things are going on. A couple nice notes from the Fed, if you will. The Federal Reserve made money last year. That means you and I made money last year. Now, we have to talk about how much risk we took to make the money. But the Federal Reserve returned $76.9 billion. They wrote a check for $76.9 billion, slightly more than I made last week, to the U.S. Treasury last year. The second highest amount ever returned to the Treasury. 2010 was the highest.
Some of that on their TARP loans?
It was all on their, on the TARP loans. Now they picked up, I think I did the math right on this, right? They are carrying $2.9 trillion worth of consumer mortgages and debts. That's assets that they hold. I think, if I do the math right in my head, I think 1% of 2.9 trillion is 2.9 billion. Is that right? There's a lot of zeros in there. There's a lot of zeros in there. No, excuse me. 1% would be 29 billion. So they made about a 3% return on their money. So it's a little bit hard to compare because they returned a tremendous amount of money, but they took on a tremendous amount of debt. And what I mean is they bought our debt, they bought our mortgages, and they bought our securities, and they bought all these things. So they made money, but they're out there on the limb for carrying $2.9 trillion worth of mortgages. What happens if rates start to go up? The value of their holdings go down, and that could be a risk for them down the road. But at the moment, they're making a little bit of money. What I didn't know, did you know this, that we bailed out AIG, the big insurance group?
Yep.
Did you know that AIG has paid off their tab entirely? Why don't you? So I didn't know.
Yeah, they paid it off. I think there's still some their insurance portfolio still backed by TARP, but they paid off their loans. So
and that's the part I wish you heard more about. Was all you ever hear about is we bailed out this company, we bailed out these bad guys, we bailed out these people. Well, and certainly some of them go away. They just they're long gone, and you're bailing them out because you're bailing out the taxpayer. But in this case, it would be nice to know if we put out X numbers of billions of dollars to bail out AIG, that, by the way, guys, we got our money back and interest, and they're still in business. That's equally important, is that they still have some ongoing operations, right?
That's not sexy news, Jeff.
It's not good but it just irritates me. All we ever hear is the one side. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. That was one of the good news out of the Fed this week.